How we doing, everybody? This is AJ Torres from Calling Strikes, courtesy of Undrafted Sports, and I'm excited that we got a couple of guests today. We got the Blue Bloods here. We got Zach. We got Brandon. I've been very excited about this episode. These guys are anything college football. These guys will cover you. And the main reason why you might think why we have two college football guys on a baseball podcast is really because well, as you can kind of notice, I got the Kansas City Chiefs jersey and hat on. I got my Larry Johnson jersey on, is because when you are a fan of a team, and usually it's baseball, and you end up going into unfamiliar territory. I just had Sam Belcher on and DeFran. Now imagine Sam being a Seahawks fan and in the Forbidden Temple of the Connecticut and Massachusetts area. I'll be honest with you, man. It's tough. It's absolutely tough. And before the Super Bowl, also tough. So as
Oh
you can
man,
imagine, Sam's in a little bit of pain.
I can imagine, man. Well, we brought two good guys on because both of us coming from Mobile, Alabama, we didn't have any professional teams, so I felt like we were given
Exactly.
like a one free bandwagon pass growing up.
You were.
Yeah, of course.
And ironically, the teams you wrote for are not Alabama.
Not at all. No.
Yeah. Well, hey, Auburn. You see the jerseys behind me. At least it's in Alabama, and like that's where I went to college. So I have like some connection there, a little bit.
I live in Baton Rouge, if that makes like the LSU stuff up here any better.
You see, Brandon. So, like, when like you're from Alabama, like the college football choice is kind of made for you for the most part. Like, you have Alabama, you have Auburn, and then you have the wrong choice because they both hate you. And Brandon made that wrong choice by picking LSU, so everyone just hated him for his choice of those Tigers instead of the Auburn Tigers, or going to the dark side to Alabama.
And you know what was even worse is when I moved here like a year ago, people like when I had explained myself, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Alabama." They're like, "Oh, we're not going to get along during football season." I said, "I think we will." It's been nice.
It's also funny because I always said it goes by a territory. Like, for example, I live in Danbury, Connecticut. I work just across the border over in the state of New York. It's a town called Brewster. And where I am, as far as college football goes, I mean, it's not really that much of like a big thing from here. It's like, people root for UConn if it's basketball season. That's really about it. I mean, when it comes to sports, like some people be like, who the hell watches lacrosse? Well, believe it or not, Yale and Harvard have great lacrosse programs and they're big rivals with each other. Not just with students and GPA, but the fact that you mentioned them in sports, it's like ridiculous to a lot of people. You know what I mean? So when it comes to colleges, there's a lot of people where it's just like, you know what, let me turn on ESPN or maybe like a Pac-12 game, and then it's just like, let me pick a guy, or he got drafted or whatever. It kind of goes from there. There's never like you're born and you got something set up unless your father or your mother kind of put you in that jersey as a kid.
Right.
Yeah, that's been one of the big criticisms that, like, at least like I've heard of college football. So, like, for us, we're from Mobile. I mean, even like Brandon, like, technically wasn't born in Mobile. A lot of his family is in Louisiana and Mississippi. So, like both of our families, and like I have ties to like Florida, and everybody in like the South watches college football. Like, I don't think me and Brandon know people in high school who didn't, and they got like bullied in high school. It was like, do you do anything for fun? Like people, it's more common down where we're from, and it was kind of a big culture change for me to go from Mobile, Alabama, Auburn, Alabama to Kansas now, where people up here don't watch a lot of college football, and it's like no one where we grew up, like it was college football, then the NFL, then MLB, and like so I guess the way that I always grew up is I just thought everyone in the country watched college football, and now that we have the college football podcast and we've been more places, we found out that we're one of the few that pay this much attention to college football, and you're right, it is a cultural thing and an area of the country thing, and it can really shock me once I kind of got out of like my home area to see how many people really don't watch a lot of college football and don't have a team they root for.
And that's exactly why I brought you guys here, is because one of the reasons why a big long story short, uh, Matt and McConnor really got me into doing a show. I just considered myself as a writer, a journalist, an author, and that was really much else. But then there was a part of me that's just kind of like, do you want to do it? Do you want to help expand the game? And, just expand in sports. Doesn't matter if it's just baseball or not. And, I had McConnor on here. And if you listen to his episode, he'll tell you that we actually have something tabled for later for the worst fan bases ever.
Oh
And
gosh,
who do you think he said is the worst fan base ever?
it's
It is.
gotta.
It's college. It's college.
I know the right answer.
Yeah, I know the right answer, but the three that always are picked from college football. So I'll say the one that's unfair because I've experienced the fan base twice, and it's not as bad as people think, and that's LSU fans. LSU fans get the worst rap of all time. Alabama fans and Ohio State fans are always the worst fans in the history of anything ever, and they should be 1 and 2 on any list. They should be above Patriots fans. They should be above Astros fans. Anybody you want to put, I promise you, Alabama and Ohio State fans outdo them.
Now, it's funny because you could say ownership. I know who the bad owners are in North American sports. I will tell you it is Dan Snyder. Fun fact, by the way, if you guys have paid attention to the group chat, if I ever mention a man named Uncle Tim, it's actually a cover-up name. I can't say his real name because Dan Snyder has these goons that are in these offices all day. And if his name is in any sort of press, podcast, newspaper article, they will run through the system and actually revoke him of his season tickets.
Are you serious? That's insane.
I swear to God, man. They will revoke if his name badmouths the Washington Redskins football team or the next name that comes out, he will have his season tickets revoked.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, this is like the same scumbag who literally was sexually assaulting cheerleaders in Mexico. Doesn't surprise me.
And also the funny thing is we keep saying, oh, these guys are suspended. Oh, these guys are paying fines. Well, Mickey Callaway, the Angels, he's got fired and he could be reinstated in 2022. But where's the criminal charges?
Yeah.
Where are those charges? I'm sick of it. But
that's what I was about to say.
But to answer that question, he says the worst fans are the Oregon Duck fans.
No, that's a lie. That's a lie.
Mind you, right? He's a Stanford fan.
That's lie. He only says that because Oregon beats up on Stanford by 30 year in and year out. I've met a bunch of Oregon. So, Auburn, Oregon don't play a lot because, in case you guys don't follow college football and you're listening, one's in the Pac-12, one's in the SEC, all the way across the country. They never play. They played once in the national championship in 2010. Auburn won. Dyer wasn't down. And then they played in the season opener in 2019 in Dallas, actually. And I went to that game. And we tailgated all day. We came down 2 days before, met all these Oregon fans. Not a single one was bad. And after the game, so the way we won was outrageous. Bo Nix hit a last-second pass, and Oregon won the whole game. They could have been salty. I would have been throwing punches if I was on the opposite side. I had 5 or 6 of them be like, man, that was one of the best games I ever saw. Appreciate meeting y'all. We tailgated with a bunch of them. Oregon, listen, Georgia fans are worse than them because they'll bark at you. That's their chant. If you're walking by a Georgia fan and you're the rival team, they will bark at you. A grown man will bark at you. And I saw in the Tennessee game, I went to Georgia, Tennessee. So I wore a black shirt. I was neutral. They hit a Hail Mary. This fan, there were 2 girls sitting in front of them, 2 ladies, and this grown man poured 2 Cokes on their head after the game and said, fight me if you want to do something about it. And I was like, that's the type of energy. That's some Black Air Force energy right there. That is terrible.
Hey, I will just say, speaking of which, the amount of people that wear Nike Air Forces that are all blacked out and they're not felons, you could count them on one hand.
Yes, that's that.
He wasn't we're in Georgia, so mind you, he was wearing cowboy boots, but underneath there had to be some Black Air Forces or something. You don't just pour a whole drink on two females and say do something about it if you don't have at least
some cheap beer like Pabst Blue Ribbon or some shit.
Exactly. Greatest beer that happens.
By the way, Brandon, that's not a Dodger ad, is it?
It's a Dodgers hat.
Well,
He's a Dodgers fan. That was his bandwagon.
Well, I just gotta say this, man. We keep talking about we had five, three from the Jazz game, one from the Washington game, and one from the Knick game last night. Tonight is the 27th. Yesterday is the 26th. We had five fans banned from arenas yesterday. But have you noticed that every time that you see a caption that says Major League Baseball crowd fight, most of them are Dodger fans or quote unquote Dodger fans?
So I will
And
say,
mind you, before the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, they said every single Philadelphia fan base boos more than they cheered. But then after the Super Bowl from the Eagles, everything got toned down. And now it's starting to listen, as much as I'm a Yankee and Ranger fan, I hate the New York fans just as much as it is, but my cousin got a visit from Derek Jeter when he was in the hospital as a kid, so obviously there's no way that could just go away from me. It's in my blood at this point. I was such a young age. But yes, I am hating a lot of the Yankee fans, but still, doesn't that piss you off? You see Dodger fans and you see some of the girls fighting and they fight like hands on top of their head, like they're anime characters. Like, come on.
yeah, okay. Well, I will say I've been to a few games at Dodger Stadium. I used to live out on the West Coast for a little less than a year, but I've seen a couple of Dodger games. Don't walk in that parking lot after dark because you might get stabbed. I'm not sure. At least I was wearing Dodger blue, so I was in the safe. Like, no one was messing with me. I will say, I don't think enough people are paying attention to the Padres fans recently. I've seen a lot of really, really bad Padres fans, especially that one dude who slept the Rockies fan a couple weeks ago.
But
Sleep.
also, okay, just remember the Padres bandwagon has been built in the last 2 years, for one, and then there's been a lot of them that have been hiding. The
That-
guys that are at Friar Talk, they have paid their dues. They've been through a lot of pain, and there's a lot of people. I was on McConaughey's show with Joshua, and these guys are going, "Oh, this guy's not a Chiefs fan." My first quarterback in a Chiefs hat was Trent Green. Don't bullshit me about the bandwagon. You think I was proud of Trent Green being my quarterback? Come on.
He did okay for a while, but I do want to say
Yeah,
about the Dodgers
okay. Okay, but here's the thing. Okay. LaDainian Tomlinson being our daddy for about a decade. So mediocrity at best. Do you know how hard that is to live with? And they're saying, oh, Philip Rivers is a top 5 quarterback if he's on a better team. You know how many excuses until he got old? Do you know how many excuses this guy had for his whole entire career? And listen, do I think that he should be in the Hall of Fame as a Chiefs fan? Yes. But do you have any idea how many passes that guy got in the media? It made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
No, I agree. But you know what's not mediocre though? Y'all say there's been a lot of Dodgers in the media fighting. They win a lot. I just want to say that. I don't know if there's like some organized fighting out there in LA, but every time I see a fight, someone's getting slept and it's not the Dodger fan.
It just seems to be everywhere. It just seems to be what it is. And as far as I'm concerned, it's weird because the Dodgers at any point could win 10 in a row or lose 10 in a row. It's one of those weird things I want to say that's been going on since 2013, but that's just the kind of, I don't know. Maybe it's a coaching thing, maybe it's a mental thing, but that's just kind of how they work.
I know what it is recently. It's a Dave Roberts thing. He cannot manage the bullpen to save his life, and it makes me so mad every single night.
But in defense, though, I remember when they put $250 million in that team a couple years ago, and you have Jensen, and then what? You spent all that money, and then guess what? No bullpen. And that was not Don Mattingly. It doesn't matter who he got out of there. These guys had rest. These guys, it's like, hey, is it physical? Is it mechanical? Is he healthy? Is it my decision making? Nothing freaking worked for that guy. And a lot of people put it on him. Right. Dave Roberts isn't that much of an upgrade. I think Don Mattingly could have handled that team. I just think that he was ridiculed too much.
Right.
Honestly, imagine like if that Astros like series and like where like they beat you Darvish to death that one night. If that doesn't happen, imagine that bullpen now with Darvish and Kershaw and Jance. I mean, the Astros made them lose like 2 or 3 pitchers that now have turned out to be like, hey, we really weren't ever the problem.
Well,
You Darvish really turned it around. He really did.
He's a stud now.
I
Dude
mean,
is killing it.
He wasn't a great call, I will say, but so far as a Padres player, man, he's just the man. I mean, granted, he had a lot of mechanical issues. I think, he's getting healthy, some mechanic adjustments, and he's phenomenal. He really is underappreciated within the last couple of years. But moving on, I mean, tell me, Brandon. So currently, you're in Louisiana right now.
yeah.
How is it, especially since Louisiana, they'll have some minor league teams around there. But I imagine as if you think about MLB, is it tell me, what's the fan base down over by you? Does it go by a Florida team? Does it go by the Braves? Do you go over to Texas?
It pains me to say that this is Astros country, and I hate it.
Wait a minute. So they moved all the way out. You know what's actually funny? And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, because you guys know bandwagons in college football. Have you noticed that the Rangers went back-to-back World Series, lost them both? There's a neutral territory for 3 years, and then it's all Astros.
It's all Astros. I mean, it's and to be fair,
that pains me.
to be fair, I'm in Baton Rouge. I mean, it's the state capital. We're like 4 hours away from Houston. It's the closest team to us. It just irks me, dude, because I hate the Astros. Like I didn't like the Astros before the World Series. Like Zach can attest to that. Astros fans have always gotten under my skin because they just seem to come out of nowhere. Is the thing. Like no one was an Astros fan 5 years ago.
And I could agree to that.
Yeah.
They were in hiding, and the Rangers are doing well. They went back-to-back World Series.
Right.
It's just crazy. But, I mean, the reason why I brought you guys here is because, well, man, think about it. You're a Dodger fan in the Forbidden Temple of Louisiana, where you have these wannabe Houstonians breathing down your friggin' neck. And I applaud you. I have a lot of sympathy. And I mean, does it suck wearing a Dodger hat to a sports bar or a restaurant? I mean, is it awkward?
I wear it with pride, dude, because guess what? Dodgers are the reigning World Series champs, and they didn't get caught cheating doing it. So it's okay. So I don't know. It is Astros country here, but the one thing that I don't think we stressed enough is that like professional sports here in the South, like people don't really care about them. And I know that's odd. Like Zach and I, like we ride hard with our major league teams, with our professional teams, whatever it be. A lot of people don't. So like you'll see a lot more LSU baseball jerseys than you will any major league jersey here.
And ironically, Alex Bregman did go to LSU.
I know.
I mean, I can imagine that irks you quite more, doesn't it?
It kills me every single time.
And the thing is, right, the funny thing about it is that if you go by the apology, he's just kind of like, and then Carlos Correa was the worst about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Altuve is just kind of be like, hey, I'm sorry, the big boss. And then it's just like you got those two. It's like, okay, now I really want to throw at your head.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not because of what you guys did as a team. It's just like, okay, I just want to throw at you for talking a whole lot of crap. Exactly. We're sick of it.
Exactly.
Shit. A can of whip ass doesn't have an expiration date. Remember that. But tell me, future Dr. Zach, you're in Florida now, right?
No, I'm in Kansas now.
Oh, you're in Kansas. That's right. I know you're a Dolphins fan. I'm sorry. So exactly, And you've told me about the pain with some of the picks, some of the decisions, everything else, but it kind of comes down to this. Now, when I was growing up, of course, the Rams were still in the area over there, and I want to say it seemed kind of neutral, a ratio of Rams to Chiefs, until the Rams skipped town, and even though they argue that there's no fans over in LA, it kind of went to Chiefs country, which was really bad on their end as a whole. But how does it feel like? Because I can imagine if you were to pawn a Dolphins jersey tomorrow and go to a restaurant or a sports bar, I'm pretty sure you got people like me that are kind of looking at you and being like, "Big man with the beard, what in the hell are you doing, son?"
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
so I'm not like
how's that work for you?
so like I'm not a huge jersey guy. So like I think the last jersey I bought for the Dolphins was a Jarvis Landry jersey, and I probably haven't put it on in like 2 years. But like I do have like a Dolphins shirt that I wear sometimes, and I get looks. But like you said, I'm a big dude with the beard, and a lot of people don't say much to me. I mean, it's just kind of like okay, like I could talk crap, but he's pretty big. Like he's a big dude. So like I've got like one question about it, and then I kind of explain how I became a Dolphins fan. They're like, fair enough, but I get a lot more looks because, as Brandon said, we're way more invested in college sports. I wear something Auburn. Brandon could tell you every single day, whether it's a hat, a shirt, it's a hoodie, something like. I'm always wearing something Auburn, unless like I'm wearing our merch or something like that. And I get way more looks for that because I remember I wore it to class. It was like my first year, like a teaching assistant. So the whole class is coming in. It's like week one of college football. I got my Auburn shirt on, and the teacher called me out and was like, "Why aren't you wearing K State?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not a Kansas State fan." And like Auburn plays what it was back when we played Washington week one. So it was like a 6 versus 9 matchup. And I was like, this is a top 10 matchup. Like I got to rep my squad. Like, because I always wore an orange Auburn shirt with navy blue shorts. So it was like orange and blue along with the Auburn shirt. They're like, Auburn came up here and beat us. And it was like 2014 was Auburn came up to Kansas State, put a whooping on them.
Oh
And
boy.
apparently they're still holding grudges about that. And the teacher was like, well, you need to start wearing some more K-State. And I was like, well, when they start having top 10 matchups, I will start wearing some more K-State.
Well, just remember this. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys know how big I am, but I'm 5'7", 180 pounds, and so you can imagine it's like, hey, I'm a Pacers fan too, and now mind you, this is Knicks and Celtics territory that I'm in
Yeah.
primarily.
Oh.
So it's like, although the Knicks fans, you actually shut them up pretty quick. It's like they see what the
Yeah, a
Pacers
little bit
had
harder
on,
for the
and
Celtics.
yeah, I work with a guy, and he just goes, "Wait a minute." He points at it. Reggie Miller. Goddamn.
Well, it might be easier with the Celtics now that, outside of Tatum, they're pretty garbage. I mean, Jalen's all right, but now he's hurt.
I'm wondering what the hell is going on with there. I'm like, is it a chemistry thing? Is it a coaching thing? Did they lose the magic? Like, what was going on the last 2 years?
As soon as Jalen got hurt this year, kind of ended their year. They were doing all right, but then it's just they could never figure the point guard situation out past Isaiah Thomas. Kyrie was a bust. Kemba's been a bust. The Gordon Hayward signing was an absolute bust, and they finished second according to KD to get his talent. If they would have brought KD in with how Jaylen Brown and Tatum turned up, man, could you imagine what they could have been? And yes, the Nets went out and spent a lot of money, but for the Nets to be the 1 seed making a run to the championship before the Celtics did, when the Celtics had their entire future, is as much as Danny Ainge gets the credit for finessing that organization, if the Nets win the title this year, they kind of get the last laugh, in my opinion.
Did you hear about the ticket situation going on over here?
Mm-mm.
The Knicks playoff tickets apparently sold within the first half hour, but the Nets were. Well, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, man. It's funny because even when they were piss poor, it's the hardest ticket to get in the whole city of New York. I mean, Ranger tickets are pretty hard, but I mean, you name it, That is the hardest ticket to get in the whole city is a Knicks ticket. And even though they might be an absolute, it could be a bad matchup, whatever, it's a hard ticket to get. And, it's no surprise that they sold out fast. But the Nets, they were trying to sell them for half price. If you're no,
Wow.
literally, they're saying like, hey, order now, and we're going to have James Harden pay for half your ticket. So that means you're selling your tickets to the playoffs against the Boston Celtics. We're not talking about the Hornets. The Pacers, I think the team travels well. It's not them. The Boston Celtics are coming to town. You're selling these tickets for half off. Get
I
the
mean,
hell out of here.
listen, I'm a Celtics fan actually. So like, that was my bandwagon for NBA is I went with the Celtics just because I was a huge Paul Pierce fan as a kid. Brandon could tell you, Allen Iverson and Paul
That's
Pierce are
not a
my two
bandwagon.
guys.
If you follow a good player, that's fine. So
Yeah,
you're a Dolphin fan, a Pacers. I'm sorry, a Dolphins fan, a Celtics fan, and what else, man?
a Marlins. Marlins is where I went with MLB. Just I
Marlins. All right.
stuck to like the city of Miami, but I never was a big Heat fan as a kid. I just never got into it that much.
It was before the LeBron
Yeah, oh,
regime,
yeah,
or
way before that. I picked my teams like because I was always into sports. Like when you're growing up in Mobile, man, you got to pick your teams early. Like we all picked our teams at like 5, 6. Like Brandon, everyone always calls Brandon a huge bandwagon for rooting for the Dodgers. I've known this guy since like fourth grade, and he has been a Dodgers fan from like day one. So like he picked the Dodgers when they sucked. He
Yeah.
picked
so
the Clippers
yeah,
when they
they
sucked.
were pretty mediocre when I was growing up, especially early 2000s. I mean, so how did you guys pick your teams? Just out of curiosity.
That's fun.
I mean,
That's the one thing I've really been interested in. I know I actually picked mine late, and I actually do think like I actually been asked this question. I do have somebody I hope to have somebody next week from Germany tell me how he picked his teams. But
I,
I kind of like it when you're maybe not an adult, but when you're in high school and you know enough, you know who a good or bad owner is, you know the good players, you know how free agency works, especially back then. Because when I was a kid, free agency was still is still kind of early to the party.
mhm.
It was a big loyalty thing. It wasn't these ratings weren't going completely out of the way. It's like if you go with football, it's like free agency. It was huge. You would have to basically invite the guy to your house, pay for his dinner, and really, have to convince him to sign. Baseball, it's like it seems like you went to the Yankees or the Red Sox when I was a kid, and that was your free agency.
Yeah.
So that
I'm
part really didn't start back then. So, but now it's just crazy. Anything could happen. I got a City Edition Oladipo jersey, and people looked at me like I'm crazy.
I mean, for me at least, like so Auburn was easy. That was like when I was raised, and ever since I can remember, I was an Auburn fan. I mean, Brandon can
Self-explanatory.
tell you, yeah. I mean, Brandon can tell you, I never missed a game. Like we were going to like homecoming and stuff, and I was watching it on my phone at whatever we were doing. Like we had football games that we were playing. Like when we played middle school football, we had like a Thursday night game, and we had a thing, and like I was getting updates from like my parents like let me know what's up. Like Auburn games are like holidays for me. I don't work. Like my girlfriend knows we don't do nothing on Saturdays. Like it is college football. The Marlins actually is funny. So like my stepdad was actually from that area, and he was a big Marlins fan. And he happened to like come into my life when the Marlins won the World Series back in like oh three
This
oh
is
four.
2000. Oh, this is 2003. Yes,
Yeah, and
I
so
remember that as a kid. Yes, a little
yep.
painful.
And so that kind of got me into Miami sports a little bit for baseball because I never was a big baseball guy. I still not a huge baseball guy. Like I'll watch it here and there as like a casual fan, but not a baseball guy at all. But that was my team just because they were really good. My stepdad liked them, and I just kind of stuck with them. Celtics due to Paul Pierce, one of my favorite players growing up, so I went with the player on that one. Then the Dolphins fan, my dad and my uncle were both Dan Marino fans. They grew up rooting for the Dolphins, so I just kind of got raised a Dolphins fan, and I stuck with them. And part of me wishes I wouldn't have, but at the same time, like I just stuck with them, and so even I'll suffer. I got NFL Sunday ticket. I watch the Dolphins games just about every Sunday, but it's been a tough road to be a Dolphins fan growing up. So,
Well, just remember this. There was a time where I was a kid, and me and my father basically had like this sit down conversation. Imagine being at a dinner table where it's you, your father's across from you, and my dad's a very good friend, close enough where I refer to him as my Uncle Paul. He's a diehard Steelers fan.
Right.
So imagine you got 1 and 2. Now, granted, I've always respected the steel curtain, but I felt like I had to dig my own path. And, my father's just kind of like, it wasn't like, hey, time to make you a Jet fan. He's just kind of like, do I really have to do this? You're not on board with this, right? Okay, that's good. That's good by me. Tell me when you make up your mind. But sure enough, for Christmas one year, he did buy me a Priest Holmes jersey. And a lot of people don't think of him much because Larry Johnson was in the picture at the end of his career and he had those neck injuries. But if you remember, he had the single season record for touchdowns. That was broken by Sean Alexander and then broken by LT, who will have that record for probably the rest of NFL history because the game has just changed so much. There's no way that somebody's going to score 29 touchdowns that's not a quarterback.
Right. So I guess it's my turn. This is a lot of pressure on B-Dub right now. So LSU. So I'm originally from Mississippi. I'm from like southern Mississippi, almost no man's land as far as any sport goes. There's no professional team in Mississippi. There's hardly college teams. We have Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Southern Miss for Division I football. But I was born in Hattiesburg. It's where Southern Miss is from. That's where both my parents went. And, you love to root for them, but they're not a Power 5 team. My dad actually worked on the sidelines at LSU games when I was a kid, like super, super young. And he was a big LSU baseball fan, actually, growing up. He was big into baseball. He played in community college, but past that, nothing really else. But big baseball guy. LSU was dominant in the 90s in baseball. He was an LSU fan, so I was. So that's pretty much where that comes from. I moved to Mobile when I'm like 5. Zach and I met like pretty shortly after that, a couple years down the road. But in Mobile, if you're an NFL fan, Zach, who's your team?
The Saints or Falcons. That's 2 choices.
So and listen to me when I say this. I love the Saints. I cannot get the New Orleans Saints. Now I live in Louisiana. It's kind of paid off. But I mean, that's the hometown team in Mobile. People love the Saints. I'd say there's probably more Saints fans than Falcons fans. I'm actually
surprised the Falcons stretched that over far west, to be completely honest with you. But now it's probably being converted over the Buccaneers, right?
A lot of people down here hate Tom Brady, so no.
Yeah. Oh, thank God. Hey, fellas, you have to admit, as much as, listen, even though I consider myself a Yankee, I don't hate the South by any means, but there's a lot of people that are outside of these walls that are being like, praise Lord, that the people down south have the common courtesy to think that Tom Brady is not the guy. The fact that we're not converted from him and not kissing his feet.
God.
Zach.
What's up?
What's your thoughts on Tom Brady, dude?
That's the GOAT, the one and only GOAT. I'm a huge Brady fan. He's been my favorite NFL player, even as a Dolphins fan. I love Tom Brady.
And you're a Dolphins fan. Oh my God.
Well, but we suck. So like I admired the winner. I was like, that's the dude that beats us 60-0 twice a year. Like my quarterback one year was Cleo Lemon. Do y'all know what happened to him?
He owned a car dealership.
I don't even know if he's alive anymore. I have no idea. He went 0-16 with us, so that's where
Cleo
I was.
Lemon. Did you imagine that? Yeah. Lemon Chevrolet. Something like that.
Yeah, I'm a huge Brady fan, though, man. You can't take anything away from him. I just like greatness, man. Like I like watching what LeBron's doing. I like watching what Brady's doing. That's why I'm a huge Kershaw fan. Like if you're doing it at that high of a level for that long and no one can stop you, that blows my mind. And I'm an Auburn fan, but me and Brandon's an LSU fan. We both love Nick Saban because the fact that he can do what he's doing at the highest level, I mean, man, you got to respect it at least.
I respect it. I'm not a Nick Saban fan by any means.
We're not a fan, but like we're just like, man, can you believe? Like me and Brandon both think Nick Saban's already the greatest college football coach, maybe football coach of all time.
I will say though, there's not too much I got left to ask you. But speaking of which, yes, I do think that Nick Saban is. I mean, if you look at what he's done to the program, he's got a system intact, and I always say that with NFL coaches, the one thing that made Brady so dominant is because if you look at the division, the whole, for the most part, if we go by 2000 all the way to today, for the most part, it was, do we have our head coach? Yes. Do we have our quarterback? Oh, we'll search it next year. Or it was either I don't like my quarterback, or I don't like my head coach, or I don't like my offense. Essentially, they had no idea what they wanted. They tried to structure it, but then they fire somebody and they try to restructure it again. And there was no consistency for that amount of time. So when they're trying to get their act together, Brady and Belichick just have everything aligned and they just keep doing it. Now, granted, I hate when anything's tainted. And do I think that part of it is tainted? Yes, I do. And you have to admit that there is a lot of controversy that does surround it, good and bad. I just like when everything's done clean, no controversy. There's always going to be what ifs, but controversy could be prevented, but never erased. Never erased.
Yeah.
But the kind of thing that's been searching my mind for a while, and there's a lot of guys who have asked about Anthony Kay, especially. How do you think Urban Meyer is going to do in Jacksonville?
I'll tell
okay, go ahead.
I'm not a believer. I can't be.
I agree.
We've seen. I don't know. Well, let's kick it back to Nick Saban real quick. I mean, let's talk about what's going on. Like in that, let's compare that because we've seen a lot of great college head coaches, right? And then we've seen them try to move on. No, don't give me that, Zach. I'll give you another one real quick. So we saw what Nick Saban did in Miami. Understandably, wasn't fully his fault. The ownership wasn't really working with him. He didn't get his man Drew Brees, who that. But we also, we saw what Chip Kelly tried to do in the NFL.
That's exactly what I thought myself. Now, granted, I do think ownership is a part of it, and I do think that the Dolphins' ownership has been very rocky the last, I want to say, 15 years, to say the least.
Yeah.
At least.
But I don't know, man. I don't – there's not much of a translation between the college and the professional game, in my opinion, especially when it comes to coaching. There's really not. They're two totally different games. Like, you can believe that or you don't have to believe it.
I think they're two different games, but also I think it's just different structure wise because, you see, I think when you're Nick Saban, and especially when you don't have to worry about terms of money and everything else, I think that when you're in a college system, and a lot of people will tell you, it's like, hey, I got my system into place. You guys want to win my way or the highway.
Yeah.
But then it's like, there's no distractions like the NFL. Like, for example, right? When you are a college athlete and you are being stupid, like throwing your money away at the titty bar and skipping class, what's your coach going to do? He's going to open your room. He's going to dump a bucket of water on you, and he's going to be like, hey, son, get your shit together and let's go. In the NFL, guess what? That guy is going to be drinking beer and having wings. There's a lot of basketball players that are doing it, but this year they've gotten away with it. Ironically, in a Mavs and Clippers series again. I digress. But it's just when you have a lot of guys, there's, hey, I'm a veteran. You don't really get that too much in college. I mean, there's like, hey, I'm a senior, but then it's just like, I'm an old timer and I've got more experience than you do. When you go with the fact of it goes by money, guys that are, past prime. I mean, if you're passing your prime and you're 20 years old, chances are you don't make the team.
Right.
where it's like if you're past your prime and suddenly, the gas stops going at 26 years old, you're just done. That's just it. So when you got these aging players, these contracts, these different mentalities, there's a lot of reasons why I think that the NFL game is a lot different than college. It goes by the athletes, the mentality, the structure, and there's a reason why I think that we treat the sports different. It's like, hey, I'm a football fan, but we'd go with college football and NFL football. It's like two different genres of music.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the similarities are going to start overlapping a lot more, especially with now how the transfer portal is being utilized and now the one-time free transfer. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more, like you mentioned, the players having a lot more power in college football than they once had, and I think you're going to start seeing coaches having to coach a little bit differently at the college level. But I think it's going to affect the newer coaches better because Nick Saban could just. I mean, he literally came out and said he recruited a player one time by putting his rings on the table, all the rings he won, national championship, conference championships, threw them on the table at this kid's house and said, "Do you want to be a winner or do you want to lose to me every year?" I mean, but regardless if you think you're the best player in the country, you can't argue with that because
No.
the sad part is, I mean, me and Brady can tell you he wasn't lying. Because if you don't commit to Alabama, he's probably going to beat you eventually. So, I mean, and who's transferring away from that? I don't know. And Alabama's been dominating the transfer portal, so Nick Saban's fine. But I think a coach who comes in and tries to implement a Nick Saban coaching scheme, a Nick Saban mentality, and talks to his players like Nick Saban, I don't think he's going to be successful anymore because a lot of those players aren't going to buy into losing 5, 6 games a year and being treated like that. Nick Saban can get away with it because he's a winner.
Well, that I agree, and I think that's why the Urban Meyer thing isn't going to work. It's because the one thing is that I keep hearing too is that if you have guys that have been there for multiple years, and it's different if you have a new regime or a new head coach coming in, but if you have a veteran in there and he's going to try and change the whole structure of everything, and he goes, "Fellas, we're going to win," it's like you're forgetting something here, coach. This is the big boy league. Now, granted, do I think the Texans stand a chance? Because I'm assuming that Deshaun Watson isn't playing, so I'm gonna say that they're marked out. But if you got them, the Texans and the Colts, I think it's anyone's game, and I think that some people have to figure that out. Now, do I think that he's putting in a couple of players in there to take the pressure off of Trevor Lawrence? Yes, I do. But there's the way that this is structured, I think it's going to be frustrating for a lot of guys. I think if you go by just his first year, I think it's going to be an overhyped fail. But if we go towards down the stretch, even Bill Belichick has said you need 3 to 4 years for a head coach to put his full system into place. And there's been a lot of guys since the turn of the century that haven't had that chance. There's so many coaches fired within the first 2 years. And I like the 3 year thing, as in like, hey, give me 3 off seasons, give me 3 drafts, give me 3 solid regular season years to go for everything. And then you evaluate, and it's like, hey, if you lose your job, I mean, I think it's fair.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there
I
might be a
mean,
little controversy if you're middle of the road and you're close to it. But if you suck for 3 years straight and your system's in place, I think it's fair you'd be shown the door. Same thing goes, I mean, it's a little bit different with other sports, but I think in football, I think that's genuine.
yeah, I think they're actually going to surprise some people this year because I think they're already the second best team in their division, though, which is going to be a huge help to Urban Meyer. Because do you believe in the Texans this year?
No.
Probably not. Not with
Listen,
that roster.
even Josh will tell you now. Granted, I gave them an A for free agency, but for the draft, I gave them a D.
Yeah. Well, they didn't have
They
they didn't have any capital, but then I look at the Colts and I mean, are y'all going to look me in the face and tell me y'all believe Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence?
Oh God, no. Oh, speaking
And
of which,
that
remember when Josh and I were talking about the draft, and you said there's no way Joseph Asai is going to be there, and sure enough, he
yeah,
was.
he
What?
was, and
So sure enough, the guys that we wanted, the guys that we thought about, Ronnie Perkins was picked 5 picks after their second pick, and they decided to go with David Mills over Joseph Asai. And what does this team have? This team has I would say Shaq Lawson and J.J. Watt, past prime J.J. Watt are about the same. So you have no increase in pass rush, and you have a mediocre offensive line. You have too many tight ends. You have too many wide receivers that are not going to play to the point where instead of a bench, you might as well bring out couches. And what do you have?
Beds.
The need positions were not filled. You have one pass rusher, and that was 200th overall. That's why the draft is a D, and I could go an F.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, they're the second best team in their division. And then you look across the AFC, I don't think Zach Wilson's fixing all the Jets' problems year one. I mean, do we believe in Tua yet in Miami? Debatable. I mean, really and truly, I think I really can see them going like what now it's 17-game season. If they go, I won't be surprised if they're 8-9, 9-8, right around there, and they're going to pick probably 13th through 16th in the draft. They're going to be right there, I think. I really do, and it's just because they play in arguably one of the weakest divisions in the NFL.
I got you. I mean, it's just crazy how it all works. But you're one of those people that – so we agreed that Urban Meyer is going to be a bust the first year?
I think. Zach doesn't, but we do.
Well, I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to drag him by his shoestrings.
Zach
if
thinks
anything.
Trevor Lawrence is the –
Well, I mean, but there's so many times where a quarterback could do well, but the coach could not do well.
Yeah. I already don't like his signing of – I don't love the signing of Tebow. I thought they could have probably done a little. I mean, but you look at the roster. The roster's not bad. You get Chark and Kadarius Toney at wide receiver. That's outstanding. Now you have Travis Etienne as like a wide receiver / like utility player. You already have arguably one of the offensive rookie of the years from last year in James Robinson. You address the offensive line. Yeah. I mean, questionable, but I mean, you addressed the offensive line for the most part. Your secondary was absolutely addressed with the Griffin signing. You draft well there. I mean, personally, I think they're a fringe playoff team at best. But are we going to say that he failed if they go 8-9? I mean, how many wins would y'all consider him getting not to be a bust?
I think if we go 8-9, I think that's probably I want to say expectation. Maybe that's I think the ceiling is probably 10 wins.
Yeah, I would say that.
I think the floor is definitely 4 wins, but that's that's just trying to get everything there. I think you need. I think if that team is it fair to say 6 wins or less, it's a bust the first year?
I'm good with that. With the schedule and how much talent, how much untapped potential I think that roster has. If they get below 6 wins, I think that's an absolute F for Urban Meyer. He has to win over 6 games.
Plus, if you think that the Texans are that bad, that means if you erase the Texans, they need 4 wins.
Yep.
So you need 4 wins and then plus 1 to make it reasonable. Otherwise, it's a bust 1 for Urban Meyer.
I agree. And I think I'm actually about – hang on. I'm about to pull up the schedule for you because I can tell you because I was looking at the schedules earlier, and I really thought they had like a decently easy schedule if I had just based on, preseason predictions and things like that because, I mean, let's see, week 1, I mean, they get Houston – in Denver the first 2 weeks, and I don't think either of us.
Those should be relatively easy.
Those should be 2 wins. I mean, Cincinnati, the Dolphins could be either way. I think they'll probably split with the Colts. The Falcons are on their schedule. The Jets are on their schedule. I mean, I definitely could see all those being a flip-flop games.
They're definitely going to be competitive, and also. If we take the quarterback situation aside, I want to say last year was probably the best one-win team we've probably ever seen. Because for the most part, that
I
team
agree.
just competed every single week
Oh,
for the
yeah.
very most part.
Sure.
I think that was probably the best planned tank job ever, if
Okay.
that's the case.
Fair.
Because it didn't look like they were completely out of it. It didn't look like there was a coaching issue. It didn't look like there was something else going on. It literally looked like they were competing. It's just that they had bad luck for 15 weeks.
Yeah.
Do you think we can blame their demise on them cutting Blake Bortles?
That's probably one of the worst playoff quarterbacks I've ever seen on screen in person.
He made it to an
Live.
AFC championship. He should have made a Super Bowl.
Yes. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but is Tebow one of those I call him heat eaters? As in, like, the reason why Tebow is there is because if you have Tebow and Lawrence next to each other, they're not going to all go over to Lawrence. Half of them are going to go to Lawrence, half of them are going to Tebow.
So I got a weird conspiracy theory on this, and I want y'all to check me if I'm just like way off base with it.
I will.
I think they brought Tebow in because of Trevor Lawrence's comments.
What comments are you referring to?
But before the draft, all the questions about his leadership and everything, I really think Urban Meyer brought Tebow in to be a mentor to Trevor Lawrence.
You're out of line, Zach.
Wait a minute. Actually, if I remember correctly, wasn't he saying like about the leadership thing? Didn't he just say like I'm not that guy or something like that?
He just said football
on his shoulder because he doesn't need to have a chip on his shoulder.
I don't need to have a chip on my shoulder because I'm not that guy.
Stuff like that. And so I just think Urban Meyer brought Tebow in to like try to teach him leadership things. Just when you think of Florida, like he was the face of Florida. He led that Broncos team. I mean, I don't think he brought him in specifically because of the comments. I just think he wanted to be like, okay, can you kind of mentor him through his first year so we make sure he's ready to lead this team year 2?
He said, teach this man how to seek attention like nobody else. Teach him how to play minor league baseball when he's too bad to play in the NFL.
And can I have my basically my unadopted son play football again to give him a job?
He lives down the street. Why not?
Bad look.
Jeez. Bad look. Speaking of which, I gotta. Here's a funny one. Well, before we go ahead and end it, college football and the 4 major sports give me the worst fans.
Oh wow!
Like in each one, or like just the worst out of all of them?
Out of every sport. So if we start off with baseball, we're probably going to say Astros, correct?
Yeah, Astros fans are the worst. Anyone who denies that they should get punished for cheating.
I deny it. I think Giants fans are the worst. Obviously.
Really? We got to talk to Maddox about that.
Off the wall
fans. No, it's not off the wall. You see the hat I'm wearing? I hate
he can say off the wall because that could be biased.
Well, it might be a little biased, but if you remember the 3 World Series wins in 6 seasons, and if you ever saw a Giants fan, they were the most insufferable people on this planet.
All right, so we have 2 Astros, 1 Giants. I'll take your word on it. I've never met a Giants fan, so.
Well, if I had to give the worst as far as baseball fans go, I do not like. I could say Red Sox fans out of bias. I could say that there's some Met fans that are never ever going to be satisfied. I mean, it's a very broad category, but also it's my main sport. So I mean, I would have to narrow it down to like a top 5. So for football, who do you got?
Oh, go ahead, B-Dub.
Patriots fans, I think. I mean, even now, like, still, they suck.
Oh man! You see, I'm gonna have an unconventional one.
No, I take it back. I want to go Eagles fans. Can I go Eagles fans?
You know, like I said, man, I got a lot of different fandoms around here. The Eagle fans have toned it down, man. I'm still going Patriot fans because it's one of those mentalities. You're either with us or you suck. And there's no wiggle room. It doesn't matter if it's Seahawks, doesn't matter if it's Chiefs, doesn't matter if it's Indianapolis. It could be the Chargers. It's like, hey, You're either us or you suck. And that's just all of them are there. If I had to go my top three for football, it's Patriots, it's Cowboys, and there's Raiders. And the Raiders,
Ooh.
as far as I'm concerned, every time they show the camera to the fans, there's no women in the stands, which is actually kind of funny. And what they all do, they have the tradition of dressing up like it's Halloween and beating the crap out of each other in the parking lot. Ooh, it's
Hey,
nice to be
fair
a
enough.
Raiders.
You gotta love Oakland slash Vegas.
It's a
Yeah,
shithole.
Oakland / Vegas. I mean, I feel like I'm gonna have an unconventional one. I'll say Falcons fans.
I
I
hate
can't
Falcons.
stand the Falcons
Oh,
fan.
there's
I
gonna
hate
be a lot of controversy going on. There's a lot
I-
of Falcon fans on undrafted, man.
Man, they're just that's fine. They can at me too, and I will have because at Auburn.
We
So
gotta have a show about this, but
That's
okay.
fine. I'll have evidence because I went to Auburn. Brandon could tell you Auburn's like an hour and a half outside of Atlanta. So everyone in Auburn from Auburn, Alabama, is an Atlanta fan, and they think they're so good. They think they're the Patriots of the NFL, and they just suck. They've always sucked, and they're going to continue to suck. It's a terrible franchise. Like take it down.
If you go by that, there's a lot of people are saying, "Hey, Matty Ice, Kyle Pitts, and Calvin Ridley, and Davis, and Hurst. Who's gonna stop this team?" Same thing when he had Matt Ryan,
Themselves.
Julio Jones, Hall of Famer, and one of the best tight ends of all time, Tony Gonzalez and Roddy White. What's gonna stop you?
Themselves.
Your own ego, the coaching, and the fourth quarter. Change
It's
my
like-
mind. Your defense sucks the royal you know what of the male anatomy. Your offensive line is in shambles, and what are you gonna do? You're gonna try and score 40 points on the board every single game. Well, guess what? You've been trying to prevent this rebuild for the last 5 years. How's it going, Chief? It looks terrible. We're sick.
I just
of
hope
it.
they-
You suck.
I really just
Do something.
I really just hope they learn how to do onside kicks, bro. That is the single most embarrassing play in a franchise history. I'd
Dude,
rather have
you
the
can't
butt
blame the
fumble
coaching
than
on that one. That is simple football IQ. Was there something in the water that made everybody drop stupid? Did they
It's
lose
terrible,
their
man.
what was in the water cooler that made everybody act stupid?
That's just
They're-
the city of Atlanta.
That's
Atlanta.
football 101, man. That's football 101. Okay, so basketball, who you guys the worst?
Easy. Lakers.
Ooh.
I hate, dude. Lakers fans suck. They're so bad.
I don't have a good NBA one because I haven't I live in Kansas now. Not much NBA here. I'm from Alabama. Not much NBA there. I mean, I guess if I had to pick one just based on social media things like that, I think Clippers fans are the absolute worst.
I know it's a
There-
little
it's a-
biased, but I'm going Knicks.
Yeah.
And
I'm not gonna hate that pick.
well, here's the thing, man, is I will tell you this. There's a lot of New York fans, and I know that by living in the Connecticut and work and New York area, there's not a lot of optimism. It's just high expectations and being very short-minded. And the last two times, I think the New York fans, now mind you, there's Empire fans and there's Metro fans. It goes Yankee, Nick, Giant, Ranger, and then there's Met, Net, Jet, Islander. But for either New York fan, the last two times that they were optimistic, the Yankees were one game away from the World Series. And the Knicks, before the year began, they were optimistic. Look at them. They think Tom Thibodeau could walk on water, clinch the playoffs in the 4th seed. They said if a coach does that, he could barely walk on water. I heard that from John Jastremski, used to be JJ After Dark before going on to the New York podcast. I mean, seriously, optimism, people. It works.
No.
I will give a runner-up real quick for worst fans. I think Jazz fans really suck, just in general. You guys seen these guys? You seen the guys? You seen Mitt Romney at a Jazz game wearing his button-up shirt under his jersey? That's a thing, Zach. They're awful.
I thought that was just a rich white guy thing, but okay.
But it's a Utah thing, so it's kind of the same.
It's a Utah thing. Fair enough.
Does he drink IPA at that game, or is it Appletini?
Well, they can't drink, so it's sparkling water.
Ooh, with like dye in it, like food coloring.
Maybe no, that might be too much. They're Mormons. I don't know. I don't know many Mormons.
Sure. Pass the bottle opener. It's right next to the tampon box.
Yeah, well,
Debatable, but the college football one is going to be easy for you, man.
Hockey, I think, is definitely hard, but I would say probably I'd say the Flyer fans are definitely up there.
I don't watch any hockey, so I will just keep my opinion to myself because I can't even name all the hockey teams.
I'm a Preds fan, but so I guess I very much dislike Pittsburgh. I hate the Penguins. I do.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying it's a very physical sport. So, I mean, if somebody said Red Wings, I'd be like, you know what? They suffered a little bit after because the Detroit Tigers and the Red Wings owner was the same guy. He passed away a couple years ago. The Sun just hasn't gotten everything together yet.
Right.
I just think he needs to sell the team and put somebody else in more capable hands, or maybe just have somebody run it differently. I don't know. But that's just such a hard one. And now here's the final question out of that last topic. College football.
Easy.
Who is the worst
Easy.
fan base? And I'm going to say Ohio State.
That's a good second. I don't mind that one.
Hey, think about it. Even the athletes, right? And the thing that pisses me off more than anything, I remember when Joey Bosa got his contract offer from the Chargers, and he said, hey, they paid me more at Ohio State. Guess what happened if somebody from USC said that? That school would have the FBI go there, and there would be a full investigation.
Right.
Nope. Ohio State, fine. Why does it seem like a lot of people that graduate Ohio State to become football players just act so goddamn uneducated? It's not even funny. Seriously, the players act uneducated, and so are the fans. How could a great college supposedly come out with such a whole their own genre of moron, to say the least? I mean, it's garbage. It's like, hey, I came from Ohio State. If you said Michigan, that would have been fine. But now I just have to despise you and keep my guard up. This is terrible.
Oh, man.
I don't
Me
care
and Brandon have the
same. Buddy. I will take my medicine when it's due. But if you're going to act like a moron, if you're going to act uneducated when you went to college, I have the opportunity and the right to roast you. You could back it up, or you could take your medicine and shut up and go that way to those people that are attending or an alumni. But what do you guys have?
Man, we could do an entire hour episode about how Alabama fans are the worst fans in the history of fandom.
And it's not even so. It's so bad because before they started winning national championships under Nick Saban in 2009, yes, there were Alabama fans where we grew up. But, I mean, Zach, you can attest to this. How many more Auburn fans were there in Mobile when we were growing up than Alabama fans up till, like, 2009, 2010? I mean, it was probably like 70-30, like that kind of split. And then Alabama starts winning national championships, and suddenly 90% of people are Alabama fans. Not only that, but their actual fans, like the ones who go to the games, their own students, don't show up until the third quarter. They don't show up
or leave by the third quarter.
So, like, their stadium's always halfway full unless they're playing a prime time, like 7 p.m. game. Then it's full. Then Nick Saban buses them in. But other than that, I mean, because they do play a lot of 11 a.m. games. I'll say that. But, dude,
they don't play anybody, Paul.
They ain't playing nobody, Paul. No, dude. If LSU or Auburn played at 11, if they played at 8 a.m., Zach and I would be at those games. It's like, come on. Like, if you're a fan of that team, you have tickets to that game, go to that game.
And,
I actually wondered how that would be like, too, is because I ask some of the guys on the West Coast. Like there's certain things on the West Coast that I couldn't do. Like I couldn't be in the stock market if I lived on the West Coast because at 6 o'clock on the East Coast I wake up for work, and 9 o'clock I've already had my breakfast and coffee. I look at my stocks. At
Yeah.
6 a.m. if I got to look at them, I don't feel well if my stock went down 20%. I'm calling out of work and I'm cradling in my bed in a fetal position. But it's like football, West Coast, dude, I'd be totally down. Have freaking brunch and watch football? Why not?
I,
Like,
I
dude,
will say,
I'd want to try that one day. It's like, hey, Sunday we make breakfast sandwiches and then we order a freaking pizza or something. Like, I'd love that kind of lifestyle on Sunday. Why not?
it might be unpopular, but I truly do believe that that the Central Time Zone is the best time zone for football because
Really?
we get NFL games starting at noon, and so we're from the South. You get out of church, go straight home, watch football at noon. You you get to watch Monday Night Football at 8 p.m. I mean, it's perfect. If the game's over by 11, you can go to bed and wake up the next morning and go to work. It's not over at 1 a.m. Like, I don't know, things like that. I don't know. To me, you're just so.
yes, Central Time Zone is nice for college football too. They start at 11,
Yeah.
they end about 11, and so it's just like a full 12 hours of football, and nothing starts too early, nothing is too late. But back to the Alabama question, I'm calling out Mike DeFran too because he embodies what an Alabama fan is, which is someone who isn't from the school
And that guy's
who
my
root
Twitter
for
bro too.
Alabama.
My God.
Bandwagon fan right there. But anyway, got to call my dude out. Mike DeFran, you can come on the podcast, defend yourself. I'm calling you out here on AJ's podcast. But it's just people like that. Like they aren't from that area. They never cared about Alabama until they started winning. They were like, hey, who's the best team? I'm going to pick them. Like, and I promise you, we did a poll and like a quiz about who knew the most about technical football, Alabama fans, I think maybe 15% of them would pass.
So is that because they're from Alabama, or is that just or is
They don't
that the
watch the
fan
games.
base
I'm
as a
telling
whole?
you can ask Brandon. And I have done a series of studies from the time I was like 6 till I'm 24 now. I have been to so many Alabama football parties, and Brandon has too. Not a single one ever watched the game. And I promise you, I know more Alabama fans that can only name the starting quarterback and can't name a single offensive lineman's name.
If you were an Alabama fan and you can tell me who the coach before Nick Saban was, I'll believe you. Then we got some issues. And don't say Bear Bryant because that was
It's
not
wrong. And he didn't wear houndstooth either. That's
No,
a
he
fake
wore
thing.
plaid.
He wore plaid. We had a whole episode ranting about Alabama fans one time, so we could do an hour of just the roast of Alabama fans. It's on point.
You guys got to link me that episode. Hey, listen, there's actually gonna be a time where I think it's definitely gotten a lot bigger than what I thought it was gonna be. But we're definitely gonna have to get something going on where we got to just basically we're going to like make like a meeting of some sort. It's like we'll give like time like for everybody to like have notes set up, and we're gonna vote on who is the worst fan base in sports.
easy.
Now, I could definitely argue my end, but then I actually think it's going to be me just like taking my notepad and me just going like, let's see, reason one, reason two. I'm going to see you two guys. I'm going to see McCann. I'm just going to go grab myself a drink and just listen to rebuttal for the rest of the night. Got to be opening myself a cold Yingling and listening to guys plead their case while I'm just going to be like, I lost, but I do not care.
No,
I'll
be chugging Four Locos over here, just screaming.
a lot of Mad Dog. Man, me and Brandon cut our teeth having
easy. Aren't you Pete College? Like, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, me and Brandon cut our teeth arguing with Alabama fans growing up. So I promise you, I think me and Brandon could go toe to toe with anybody you want to bring on the podcast. That they don't stand a chance against us.
Honestly, I think maybe you got to bring. If you guys do this, maybe I'll mediate for you. But maybe you guys on your own show should bring McCana on. and I'll just mediate like it's the great debate on TV.
I'll defend Oregon against McConnell. Tell McConnell to pull up. I'll be an Oregon fan that day. We could talk.
Oh my God, we got so many shot calling right here. We got to dig against Matt and his Clippers. We got shots against the frame. We got call outs to the McConnell. I mean, wow. This is so much. But hey, I feel like every time I put a podcast on air, it's never a dull moment, and sure enough, you guys don't disappoint. Guys, thank you for everything. It's been a blast, but of course, this is your episode. So, Brandon, I'll have you have the floor. Tell us what you got, and we'll have Zach send us off in a minute.
Most importantly, guys, go check us out, the Blue Bloods College Football Podcast. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's the __ Blue Bloods. We're going to get that handle back from that science study group or whatever it is one of these days. But for right now, the 2 underscores play. Listen to us wherever you stream podcasts. On YouTube, watch us. The Blue Bloods, I think we're like the second result you get now, which is like a big upgrade from like even a week ago where we were like below the dance team or whatever. We're moving on up, guys. Zach knows the social media better than I do, but go check us out if you like college football. If you just like looking at two kind of ugly guys, go check out YouTube.
I can't follow that up, but guys, it's Facebook at the Blue Bloods Pod, Instagram at the _ Blue Bloods. If you subscribe to us on social media, man, AJ actually won our first giveaway for 100 subscribers, and now we're on the road to 300. Get one of these. Get this also shirt, another shirt, which I don't know where it is, and some other merch, man. AJ's is on the way, so make sure you guys go jump on that. We got also
on here. Facts.
I appreciate it, man. Shout out to you. But yeah, guys, we got interviews with players like Akil Glass, SWAC Player of the Year. We're going through each conference. So since I believe we started in February, every Power 5 conference we've dedicated the month to have a special guest that covers that team come on the podcast, do an episode about it. So literally whoever you root for, we have an episode for you, man. So make sure to check us out. And of course, before you even check us out, check out AJ, man. This dude's the man, and make sure to check out his podcast too.
Hey, and most importantly, Undrafted Sports, wherever we are.
Big facts.
I'll check all of us out.
All right. Thank you, everybody. These guys never disappoint. This is AJ Torson calling strikes. This is Undrafted Sports, and everybody have a good one. Everybody here deserves it, and have a good night. See you.